Alex, it's time for Games of the Week, that SEC Spotlight. Got a few decent matchups. I know you're excited to talk about one in particular. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, the first one up on the slate this week, pretty light week for the SEC as a whole. A lot of teams on their bye week, Auburn being one of them, thankfully for a lot of fans, including UKJ. A good week off to recover.
Amen. I don't have the mental stress.
Can you imagine if Georgia was this week following last 2 weeks' games? But lucky for y'all. The first game we're going to talk about this week in our SEC Spotlight, 3 games every week. The first one this week, number 16 Vanderbilt travels to Bryant-Denny at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny to take on number 10 Alabama. Undefeated Vanderbilt, by the way, KJ. Pretty crazy.
It is crazy, and it's not crazy to think that Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers have had the success that they've had. They've just been on a tear this year, carving up defenses.
Last year, I think a lot of fans know what happened. Vanderbilt beat number 1 Alabama 40-35. They had lost all 60 previous games against AP top 5 teams and hadn't beaten Alabama in 40 years. And they still haven't beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa since 1984. That game, when I looked up that score when I was doing the prep for this week, KJ, 40-35, I didn't believe it at first because watching that game last year, felt like the score was a little bit different than that, a bigger margin for Vanderbilt. Alabama did not play well at all. Started out the game with an interception, some miscues here and there. Not one of Jalen Milroe's best performances held in check in the run game. It's a different Alabama team, though. Last week against Georgia, it was almost similar to last year's game in the sense where Alabama starts out hot in the first half, cools off in the second half. But the difference was, as bad as the defense played at times and how ineffective they were in the running defense, they held their ground and they came out with a win. And the defense got big stops when needed to get them. Two very different teams from last year, KJ. Vanderbilt, experienced, brought in a lot of talent, plays football a lot better than they did last year, even though they were really good last year. And Alabama, Jalen Milroe is not there anymore. Ty Simpson's dicing up defenses. Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann praised him for what he's been able to do and how unstoppable he played in that football game last week. Do you think Vanderbilt's able to repeat what they did last year and beat Alabama in their own house? Diego Pavia seems to think so with what he said today, KJ. I don't know if you saw that, talking about how if they play within the white lines, it won't even be close. Do you believe Diego Pavia, or is Alabama just too much for them this year?
I don't believe Diego Pavia understands how the tide can erupt inside of Saban Field. Now, Saban Field. I think that both teams are improved from what they had last year to offer. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think Vanderbilt comes out with offensive fire at first. I think you'll probably see them have some success running the football with Diego Pavia and Alexander. Some 5.3 yards per carry this season for running back 1 for the Commodores. So good production there. I think if there's somebody that can step up from that receiving core, be it Richardson with 18 catches for 236 on the year, or Sherrill with 17 receptions for 225 and 5 scores, be it one of the other, if they can step up and help out in the passing game, Eli Stower is going to probably get a few double teams from Alabama's secondary, but Alabama is good enough to get to Eli Stowers with rushing 4 or 5 people. To Diego Pavia without rushing 4 or 5 people. And I think that's going to be the difference maker, is that they can send a 4-man front and get home. They can send a 3-man front and disrupt timing. And if they're able to do that, I think Bama comes away with a 1-score victory. I think if Vanderbilt can sustain that first half and keep moving the football on the ground, they can come away with the win as well. But I like Bama this time with them being at home. I think the Tide do enough to win.
It's clear what Alabama's weakness is. It's their run defense. Last week against Georgia, 227 yards on the ground, a lot of big runs for them, kept them in the football game. And what is Vanderbilt good at? Running the football. Diego Pavia, Cedric Alexander, Young, even Lassiter, their third running back. He's averaging 18 yards per carry. They're just going to throw bodies at you. Last year, Alabama struggled to stop the run against Vanderbilt. They struggled with discipline on defense. So many misdirections that Vanderbilt ran against them. Similar to what Florida State did in week 1. They're going to throw the same thing at Alabama. And I'm concerned about how the defense played last year and then against Florida State with the misdirection and how they responded. There was even times against Georgia last week where they got hit with a misdirection, a fake double reverse pass, and Georgia got 20, 30 yards off of it. That's something that Vanderbilt's going to throw at you left and right. They're going to throw out the triple option. They're going to throw out the RPO. They're going to throw everything they have at you. And I haven't seen from Kalen DeBoer and a Kane Womack coach defense the discipline to be able to stop that type of stuff. But I believe in the offense of Alabama to be able to keep up with Vanderbilt, where last year Jalen Milroe made too many mistakes for Alabama to get back in that football game, and the undisciplined penalties and some drops from receivers was a big issue. But this year, Ty Simpson's unscathed with turnovers. The receivers are playing outstanding. Even Ladazir Brooks off the bench played great last week, had a few big runs, even broke a tackle as a 5'9" receiver, was pretty crazy. It was like, where is he? Where is he in the pile? And then he squirts out and he's gone for an extra 10 yards. I just thoroughly believe that Alabama's offense will keep them in this football game, where last year it cost them in the game. And the defense, it'll figure itself out. They'll be prepared for what Vanderbilt's going to throw at them, where last year they were kind of caught with their pants down again. They'll be ready for this, and I think Alabama gets the win, embracing their home crowd. That was the problem last year, was they didn't have a home field advantage, and this year they have it, and they'll be ready to take on Vanderbilt. Next game, KJ. Beginning of the year, you could say this was going to be one of the bigger games of the weekend. Now looking at it with how this one, really both teams are playing, makes you want to get a spoon and gouge your eyes out. Number 8 Texas plays Florida. Is this game going to be watchable?
To be honest, I think it'll be a competitive football game. I think that Florida will come out after what happened last year. You go out on the road last year and lose 49-17. 49-17 is a pretty handable defeat to drive all the way back to the swamp. This time they don't have to do that. And I just think they're going to come out with nothing to lose. I think the offense and DJ Lagway will come out and try to run the football, hopefully, to take the pressure off of DJ in the passing game on 3rd and long. But the main thing is Florida's defense has been sneakily good. Even though the wins and losses have not went as planned, and LSU maybe not be the best offensive team, they really, really made LSU look downright bad on a few drives, being Florida's defense. And I got to be honest with you, you alluded to it a little bit there to introduce that with both teams kind of, with some stuff to figure out, because I'm going to be completely honest in saying I don't think Texas should be ranked. They haven't played enough good teams to lose what they've lost the way that they've lost and be ranked at number 9, in my opinion. I think they fall even further, and I actually think that the Florida Gators might upset Texas with how bad Arch is playing. That's not an easy place to go and overcome some of the stuff that he's done in the first half. I know Texas has some good defensive pieces, but I think Florida's going to find a way to win this close game for Billy Napier and really be a good thing for their program. Not turn the season around, but I think it'll be a good showing for Florida and the Gators on Saturday.
If you like offensive football, I would recommend not watching this football game because it's not going to be a lot of offense. Texas is 35% on 3rd down, and and then Florida is about 30.9% on 3rd down. Neither team can stay on the football field. DJ Lagway against LSU was completing more passes to the Tigers than he was to the Gators. I'm not sure if he's trying to go ahead and transfer to LSU and show Brian Kelly he knows who's on his football team next year, or what. Texas, Arch Manning is out here flexing on future car salesmen against Sam Houston State. I haven't seen anything on either offense to tell me that this game's going to be a shootout or anything like that. Both defenses are really good, especially Texas, one of the better defenses in the SEC and really in the country. Florida's has been playing pretty good. all year long. I don't know what to expect from the offenses in this game, though. Who's going to be worse? Who's going to be better? What have you? Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, two of the biggest busts thus far into the season. Neither of them playing well at all after Heisman candidate talk in the offseason. I don't think Texas should be ranked either, KJ. Don't have a top 25 win. Didn't look any good against Ohio State in week 1. Your offense even struggled against teams like San Jose State and UTEP. What am I to expect from a Steve Sarkisian offense except excellence? That's what it was the past 2 years with Quinn Ewers. And this year, it's been anything but that with Arch Manning. And it's not all Arch Manning's fault. The offensive line's completely reshuffled. The weapons aren't there anymore. I think Texas has enough to beat Florida, but I would not be surprised if you're sitting there in the fourth quarter and it's 10-10 or 14-14. The offenses are just so bad, the defenses are just so good. It'll be a great defensive game, and it'll be kind of like the Florida LSU game where it's going to be a defensive battle between both of them.
Might be a game where something unusual decides the outcome, like a fake punt or an onside kick. And special teams have really plagued some teams lately and before, as the Tide would know.
Next game up, the last game of the Big Three we're going to talk about, Mississippi State taking on the highly ranked number 6 Texas A&M Aggies. Another team, don't know why they're ranked so high, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, KJ. A&M coming off a nail-biting win against Auburn, barely beating the most inept offense in the entire country. Mississippi State losing heartbreaking fashion in overtime to Tennessee. Thought Mississippi State had that game in the bag for a lot of it. Defense playing with their hair on fire. Is Mississippi State actually going to pull off the upset this time, or is Texas A&M just too much for them?
I think Texas A&M's a little too much for them, but I'm not disrespecting Mississippi State. I really like what I've seen from them against better opposition. I know they're not going to win a whole lot of games this year against really, really good teams. You saw that against Tennessee, maybe just not knowing how to win those close ones yet. But you got to like what you're seeing if you're a Bulldog fan for sure compared to last year. The trajectory of this team, there's a lot of guys that can potentially be 3-year contributors, maybe even get recognition on Sundays, particularly on defense. I think the Bulldogs will find a way to make this close, but I do think Texas A&M has a little too much.
I'm a Mississippi State believer. Thought they played well enough to beat Tennessee last week. Just a few miscues here and there ended up costing them that football game. I just love the energy that the players on that team play with. The defense is awesome. Jerron Manning on that team, felt like every time I flipped over to that game, he was there. He was in the play. He was all over the football field. And it's not just him. There's a bunch of players on that defense that played really, really well. The running back, Bothwell, who transferred from South Alabama, ran all over Tennessee's defense. Granted, Tennessee's defense has really struggled all year long. There's Fire Tim Banks signs in the stadium every week. I think this is the game that Mississippi State finally figures it out, because Texas A&M did not look good against Auburn at all last week. And if Auburn had any ounce of offense, Auburn would have blown out Texas A&M last week. If they had a pulse on that side of the football, I truly believe Auburn would have a top 10 win against A&M. But they don't, because their offense is abysmal. Mike Elko, play calling and decision-making to throw the ball on 3rd and 1, similar to what Hugh Freeze. I'm worried about that. This is the game where Jeff Lebby once again makes a marquee win in year 2, also beating Arizona State earlier in the season, and shows what you need to do from year 1 to year 2 as a coach in this country, where you have other coaches, and I hate to be picking on Auburn again and again, but it's hard not to, where you have Hugh Freeze in year 3 showing the same thing over and over again, and you have a guy in Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State who just in 1 year has shown vast improvement. And even if he had lost to Arizona State and the way he lost to Tennessee, you can accept those type of games because you showed improvement and you battled and you were in those games till the very last play. And Hugh Freeze is not that type of way. I'm taking Mississippi State to pull off the upset against Texas A&M. Not impressed with what A&M's done this far on the defensive side of the football, and the offense has a lot of work to do, even though they did great things last week.
Yeah, I agree with some of that. I think Texas A&M can be extremely one-sided. I think that might really hurt them in this game if they rely too much on what their running back production can do.
It's time for the upset alert, KJ. Not a lot of games to pick from this week. There's really, I guess you could say 2, maybe 3 matchups at most where you can pick the upset. Who do you think pulls off the upset this week?
Well, I already picked them a while ago, but I'll pick them again. I think Florida finds a way to get the job done. I think that they're really wanting to play for Coach Napier. They showed that against LSU. They're trying to fight through tough times, which the competitor in me really appreciates that and enjoys seeing that. They're really trying to, persevere. Tough schedule. Probably not going to win a whole lot of games going forward, but this is a team that, with a struggling offense as is and an athletic defense that you have in Florida, I think this is one of those games you can create one of those Arch Manning turnovers and take them to the house. And you start taking some of those to the house, get some help from special teams. You never know what can happen in the fourth quarter. So my upset alert for the week, I'm taking the Gators to down the Longhorns in the swamp.
I already said Mississippi State was my upset this week. I think they're going to pull off the game against Mississippi State. Love what they have on the defensive side of the football. Lost a couple of players last week to injury. Lost the right tackle, Albert Reese, to injury last week too. I can't say it enough. I love the energy and the attitude of the team on the field and on the sidelines. It's hard for me not to see that every game and be like, I want to get up. I want to get on the field and suit up for Jeff Lebby. He fires me up, and the team fires me up with their attitude. So I'm going to take Mississippi State to pull off this upset. Love the team. Even if they lose this game and they go 2-10 on the season. Love the improvement. They battle. They're out there to play for their coach and play for their fan base, which I can't say for some teams around the SEC right now.
Yeah, they're all or nothing, 3 sheets to the wind type coach. Mike Lebby, he's got that program going on. It's like those guys want to run through a wall if they're out there.
Yeah. Other 2 games in the Blitz picks this week, KJ, not a lot to talk about. Kentucky takes on number 12 in Georgia. Do the Wildcats put up even an ounce of a fight against the Bulldogs?
Listen, this game has been respectable in years past, but I think Georgia is really ticked off after what happened last week, and I think Kentucky's just going to catch one. I just don't think this is going to be anything worth noting. I don't think it'll be very pretty. Got the Bulldogs in a big one.
I got the Bulldogs in a big one as well. Kentucky starting a redshirt freshman quarterback who played bad last week against South Carolina, who's been struggling themselves. And Kirby Smart's 9-0 against Kentucky in his coaching career at Georgia. Don't see it changing this weekend. In the last game on the SEC slate, Kent State versus number 5, Oklahoma. Does Kent State stand a chance?
I'm almost laughing that this was our last pick. and I'm not faulting it. There's just nothing better. And they don't stand a chance. Kent State could start, and Kent State could have their choice at any 2 top 10 NFL players to come play for one weekend, and they'd still probably catch it.
Yeah, they don't stand a chance, even though John Mateer's not suiting up. Oklahoma could roll out the walk-on quarterback and still win this matchup.
And take auditions Friday night. Have your shot to fill in against Kent State.
The last 2 segments of this part of the show, KJ, 2 of my favorite ones. The first one, in the hot seat. I think I know where this is going, but which coach, player, or team has the most to prove this weekend? Or even next weekend, if I know who you're going to talk about.
You know who I'm going to talk about. The Auburn Tigers have the most to prove, and if Hugh Freeze's seat was any hotter, I think he would start grabbing his pants and look for a pool to jump in, because this has been a dumpster fire to watch this year on offense. The decision making, I was appalled that the only time we want to run the ball is when it's third and long, and the only time we want to throw it over the middle of the field is when our quarterback's just trying to avoid a sack. And the only time we want to throw the ball down the field, but not throw the ball down the field plus 20 yards, just throw it 10 to 15 intermediate crossing route, like most teams have in their standard set of offensive plays, when you just need 7 or 8 yards to go execute a slant or a deep crosser. We don't know what that is. We've never heard of that. We've never heard of RPOs. We've never heard of just getting under center and lining up and running the football on third and short. We've got to throw a bootleg in there and get boot dumped on the ground shortly after, because Xavier Chaplin's bound to miss a block, or if the play even resumes, if he didn't jump off sides first. This thing is a dumpster fire. You've got to use some different players. Stop talking about using different players. Use different players if you think it's personnel. If it's play calling, control the play calling, or figure out what you want to call, because what's been going on has not been working, in particular on third down. You've not won second down at all. It's created a lot of third and longs, and you just look clueless as a football team. And, I said it before in the first segment, when is Auburn going to have enough of just being just enough to get by and just enough to compete? And when are they going to, have enough and get over the edge? Hugh Freeze's seat is very hot. I will say this, if he does not at least have one of the other between Alabama and Georgia as a one-score game or lower going into the fourth quarter, if they are both blowouts and the team looks unconvinced, uninspired, both teams, both games, it's time to go. I think that's the situation for Hugh Freeze right now. It's a 2-game season for him. Should be, as in my opinion, as a fan and of the sport and of the team.
And all the Auburn fans sitting here saying, well, those are our best players on the football field. Well, it can't get any worse. Put the true freshman out there. It honestly cannot get any worse at any position on the football field, except maybe a receiver. The part of the receiver is the fact you don't coach them and you don't give them the ball in the right situations. Anything else can only get better. Offensive line can only get better, and your quarterback can only get better, as much as it's somewhat not his fault.
Yeah, I used to get tickled whenever when we had Ryan Davis, if you remember that name. Ryan Davis, man, he can't say Auburn hadn't had no good receivers, man. He broke the record against Alabama in the Iron Bowl for receptions. Yeah, well, imagine if we did something to him other than throw it 5 yards on a quick screen. I can only imagine.
My coaching team in the hot seat this week is Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator at Alabama, and the run defense. And not in the sense where if the run defense looks bad this week, he's fired and he's out the door. You're on the hot seat because Vanderbilt talked about it earlier. Averaged 223 yards per game, rushing yards per game, 18th in the country. Next game, you play Missouri. They average 292 rushing yards per game. That's third in the SEC. Maude Hardy's the best running back in the country right now. And you give up 227 rushing yards to Georgia last game, and what many would say is not the best rushing attack in the SEC and really in the country. Running backs are not what they used to be. There's no Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and Todd Gurley back there. It's Nate Frazier, who can't hold onto the football, and a Chauncey Bowens and Cash Jones, who stumbles trying to get a first down. Alabama's allowing the third most rushing yards per game in the SEC at 160.5. Watching the game last week, loss contained numerous times. Damani Jackson felt like every play was chasing the running back on the edge. There was no discipline from him. There's no willingness to go make that tackle. And what I saw later in the game is we put in guys like Red Morgan and Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. and Dijon Lee. And on that big third down, they were swarming to the football. They were out there trying to make that big hit. Maybe it's a willpower thing for guys like Damani Jackson. Deion Sanders was notorious for not wanting to go up and tackle. He even admitted it himself. You got to have guys not only at the linebacker and the defensive line position and even the safety position with Bray Hubbard that want to go out there and want to tackle. They want to lay the wood. They want to hit that player. and not injure him, target him, so to say. Just go out there and give me a tackle. Go out there and give me the effort. And I haven't seen that from a lot of players on the defensive side of the football. And against Vanderbilt last year, defense did not look good. Undisciplined, gave up so many yards, gave up so many long pass plays because you're looking the wrong direction, biting on the run player, the read option, and there's the running back 50 yards down the field. That's still ringing in my head right now as we got caught looking in the backfield, and I think it was Cedric Alexander is down the field and scores the touchdown, wide open in the end zone. Horrible. Kane Womack's got to show me something this week with the run defense because his entire time at Alabama as defensive coordinator, it's the same old, can't stop the run, semi-decent against the pass. Something's got to change, either the scheme or the players, or even the coaching. Last segment here, KJ, the on the rise. Pick a player, coach, or team that has shown improvement or really come onto the scene in the last couple of weeks. Who do you have as your on the rise?
Well, I will stick with the theme that I've had the last few weeks of picking somebody from Auburn, even though there's not a whole lot of good that I can pick from. I will say that there was a few performances individually that I was really pleased with. The defense as a whole, we said it earlier, kept Auburn in the game for sure. The Auburn defense, I don't think a whole lot of people had on their bingo card for Auburn to be the top SEC rushing defense in most categories, and they are that so far and have looked very good in that department so far this year. They've got after the passer when they've had to. DJ Durkin, I've criticized him at times for his three-man rushes, which I think are useless to football. I'm not a fan of three-man rushes unless you just have three mastodons that can just get it done. I think they're, a waste of time. I think four gives an offensive lineman some sweat as you have 5-on-4, but 5-on-3, you don't have enough.
No pressure.
There's just not enough pressure. I thought DJ did a really good job of disguising pressure the last few weeks. And an individual performance on offense that I was actually really pleased with was Cam Coleman. I thought that when he got the football, again, he looked really good. It's, with Cam, he is the type of guy that not only wants to go get the big one, but the reason that I think he's so special and only wish that he had an offensive line passing game to be fully in sync with is that this guy not only wants to go catch the contested ball and flex afterwards and go streak down the field, he wants to block for the running game. You see him on the running plays on the sideline just bulldozing people. A lot of people around the Auburn program will tell you that's why Perry Thompson may not be getting a whole lot of snaps right now. So he's not a great blocker in the running game. Auburn, when they run the football, they haven't done much of it, but when they have ran the football, it has usually been on the side that Cam Coleman is helping block for because he's just a big body, wide frame. He wants to be physical, and I just love what he brought to the table through some more adversity. You can only imagine if he had a great passing game. But the defense in particular for Auburn, spectacular, kept us in it. Really proud of the effort, in particular, that defensive line. The 7-man unit has just been really good the last few games, multiple players getting sacks.
I was at the game that Wilkin Formby played USF, and I don't know what else to say, but I just wanted to die in the stands watching him try to play right tackle. He was horrible. I have seen people in high school block better than him than they did against USF. It was almost like Xavier Chaplin this year for Auburn. It was either a pre-snap penalty, he's getting blown off the line, or it's a holding call. But then I go to this game, and it's just like, wow, the development of this guy has surprised me. I truly thought he wasn't going to last on the offensive line this year. But what I saw against Georgia, received a 93.2 pass block grade from Pro Football Focus against Georgia, which was first among all offensive linemen in Week 5. Awesome. And then the rest of the offensive line. The starting offensive line allowed only one pressure against Georgia, and that was Geno Vandermark, who's probably the weakest of the bunch. And you rotated a ton of guys, too. It wasn't just the same 5 guys the entire game. Caden Proctor and Parker Brailsford played 79 snaps. Formby played 72. Vandermark played 54. Cam Dewberry played 53. William Sanders played 26. Michael Carroll played 25. Jaden Roberts played 7. And Jackson Lloyd played 2. You're getting the young guys experience. They're holding up in the protections. You have a guy in Wilkin Formby who last year was wondering if he was even going to get playing time, and he comes out as the best pass blocking grade of any player in the country. The growth of him and the entire offensive line has helped Ty Simpson in the run game, even though it has struggled due to injury to Jam Miller, grow. Ty Simpson would have not had the success he had against Georgia if he didn't have guys like Wilkin Formby and Caden Proctor and Parker Brailsford blocking for him. If we got the blocking that we got against USF last year, that we got against Georgia, that game would have not even been close. Ty Simpson would have been similar to what Jackson Arnold is and eating dirt every 2 seconds of the football game. I'm just super impressed by what the development has taken place there and the willingness that Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb have switching out even true freshmen in a game of that magnitude and the pressure in the pocket still being able to hold tall. The one thing I do worry about is the run blocking did struggle in the interior at times, but that'll come with testing defenses over and over again. Just super impressed by the offensive line after years and years of struggles across it, even under Saban.